game was rigged from the start. The world built its illusions carefully, constructing a stage where the weak appeared powerful, where deception wore the mask of wisdom, where corruption paraded itself as virtue. The audience watched, entranced, believing the performance, swallowing the lines fed to them without question. But you did something no one expected. You pulled back the curtain. You exposed what was never meant to be seen. You disrupted the illusion, tore apart the carefully arranged stage, and now they stand exposed, naked in the unforgiving light of truth, trembling in the presence of the very thing they swore would never come. The weak thrive in darkness. Their power is not real. It is a mirage, a carefully constructed web of manipulation, dependent on ignorance, on blind acceptance, on a world too distracted to see. They build their castles out of smoke, their authority out of shadows, their influence out of fear. And for a time, it works. As long as no one questions, as long as no one challenges, as long as no one peeks behind the curtain, they remain untouchable. But deception is fragile. Lies demand constant maintenance. Illusions only survive if no one dares to look too closely. And once exposed, they cannot be unseen. You changed the game the moment you decided to see. The moment you questioned what others took as fact. The moment you refused to be hypnotized by the performance. And they felt it. The shift. The crack forming in their carefully curated reality. Because exposure is death to the manipulator. Once the curtain is pulled back, they are no longer the untouchable, the righteous, the respected. They are nothing but desperate, scrambling frauds, trying to patch the holes in a sinking ship. And the best part? The audience is watching now. Society functions on controlled perception. Those in power do not need to be strong. They only need to be believed. And so, they manufacture narratives, distort reality, rewrite history in real time to keep the illusion intact. They know most people will never question, will never investigate, will never look beyond what is given to them. The masses are trained to accept, to comply, to obey. But the few who dare to challenge the script, who refuse to applaud blindly, who demand truth, those people are dangerous. And you have become one of them. Psychologically, exposure is the greatest fear of those who build their existence on deception. They survive by controlling perception, by ensuring that what people see is never what actually is. The moment their actions are laid bare, the moment their hypocrisy, their cowardice, their manipulation is revealed, the power is gone. The spell is broken. The audience turns, and the ones who once commanded fear and respect are reduced to nothing. That is why they will fight to the bitter end to silence you, because the moment one person sees, the moment one person speaks, others begin to think, and thought is the death of control. Watch them now. Watch how the confident voices turn to stammering, how the unwavering facade begins to crack, how the ones who once towered above the rest shrink beneath the weight of their own deceit. The arrogance is gone. The certainty has evaporated, because they know the illusion is over. And worse, they are now at the mercy of those who once believed in them. The crowd, once loyal, now turns hostile, because nothing enrages people more than realizing they were lied to. Modern society is built on spectacle. Politics, media, corporate power, all of it. A stage designed to pacify, to distract, to condition. The actors change, but the game remains the same. And those who benefit from the illusion will always seek to silence those who expose it. That is why the truth is ridiculed. That is why those who speak against the script are demonized. cast as villains, as threats, as dangers to society itself. Because truth is chaos to the system. Truth means the game no longer works, and those who have profited from the deception will do anything to keep it alive. But it is too late for them now. You saw, and once something has been seen, it cannot be unseen. The mind does not return to ignorance. It does not willingly submit to the illusion again. That is what makes you dangerous. Not just that you know the truth, but that you can see through the next lie before it even arrives. You are no longer a pawn, no longer a spectator. You have become something untamed, and the system does not know what to do with those who cannot be manipulated. The exposed have only two options: run or burn. Some will attempt to escape, to rewrite their narratives, to manipulate their way back into safety. But others will fall apart completely. Stripped of their deception, they have nothing left, because their entire existence was built on a foundation of falsehood. And once the mask is torn away, once the audience turns against them, they are finished. The ones who thrive in manipulation do not wear their deception like a clumsy disguise. No, the architects of illusion understand the art of crafting masks so seamlessly that even you begin to doubt your own instincts. Their words are rehearsed, their expressions calculated, their entire existence sculpted to evoke trust, admiration, obedience. They are not honest creatures. They are performers. And their greatest trick? Convincing you that the mask is real, that beneath it there is nothing sinister, that the warmth in their eyes is not artificial, that the concern in their voice is not rehearsed, that the connection you feel is not manufactured. But it is. Every second of it is. In relationships, the manipulator does not strike with force. That would be too obvious, too crude, too ineffective. No, the true manipulators weave their influence slowly. They construct a persona tailored perfectly to your desires, mirroring what you seek, reflecting the qualities you crave. You think you have found someone who understands you, someone who sees your soul in ways no one else ever has. But what you have actually found is a predator who studied you before making the first move. The warmth is a lure. The charm is a weapon. And once you are trapped in their carefully curated version of reality, the mask begins to shift. You will not notice the change at first. It happens in increments, so gradual that the person you first met, the one who made you feel safe, seems to morph without ever changing at all. Their kindness starts to have conditions. Their affection becomes transactional. The admiration they showered you with turns into subtle critiques, each one just mild enough to make you question rather than defend. This is how control is built, not through direct dominance, but through erosion. Not by force, but by redefining your own perception of yourself. Once you are under the influence of a manipulator's mask, reality itself bends. You second-guess your instincts, downplay your intuition, dismiss the discomfort that gnaws at the edges of your mind. Because how could someone who seemed so perfect be dangerous? How could someone who once spoke such beautiful words now be the cause of your suffering? This is where their power thrives, in the gap between who they appeared to be and who they truly are. And as long as you remain in that gap, as long as you hold on to the illusion, you will defend your own captor. This is the psychology of manipulation. Control disguised as care, influence disguised as intimacy, power disguised as partnership. And the longer you remain entangled, the more you will change. Your mind will warp to fit the expectations of the mask. Your self-worth will adjust to match the value they assign you. Your identity itself will reshape under the pressure of their carefully crafted influence. And when you finally wake up, if you ever do, you will not just have to escape them. You will have to escape the version of yourself they created. Breaking free from a manipulator is not just a matter of leaving. It is a matter of reprogramming your mind, of tearing apart every false narrative that was embedded into your psyche. It is not just about recognizing the mask. It is about realizing you were rewritten to serve it. And this is what keeps most people trapped. Because once the mask falls, once the truth is undeniable, you must face the horror of how much of yourself was sacrificed in service to a lie. And not everyone is ready for that kind of confrontation. But if you are, if you see it now, if the cracks in their carefully curated performance have become too obvious to ignore, then you must destroy the illusion completely. Not gently, not carefully, not with patience. Manipulation only survives in ambiguity. The moment you fully accept that the person you fell for never existed, the spell begins to break. The emotional ties dissolve. The power they had over you weakens. And in that moment, you reclaim yourself. The key to escaping a manipulator is not just leaving, it is unmasking. It is forcing yourself to stare at the truth until it burns away the last remnants of the illusion. It is detaching from the fantasy, severing the emotional connection to the persona they created. It is rejecting not just them, but the version of yourself who once needed them. Because that is what they preyed upon. Not just your trust, but your desire to believe in something that was never real to begin with. The strongest ones, the ones who never fall into this trap again, do not just escape. They study the mask, they learn the patterns, they dissect the tactics, analyze the strategies, memorize the signs, so that no manipulator will ever be able to slip into their lives again. And that is the greatest revenge. Not anger, not bitterness, not destruction, but immunity. The ability to walk through the world with a mind too sharp, too ruthless, too aware to ever be deceived again. Exposure is not always about confrontation. The weak believe in direct warfare, in throwing accusations, in battles fought with raised voices and pointed fingers. But true power waits. It lets the weight of deception crush the deceiver, lets the web of lies collapse under its own strain, lets the performance fall apart without a single word needing to be spoken. The most devastating revenge is not an attack. It is allowing time to do what it does best, unravel everything false. And once the cracks begin to show, once the performance begins to fail, the liar does not need to be exposed. You only need to watch as they expose themselves. Manipulators are architects of illusion. Every move is calculated, every deception carefully placed to maintain control, to dictate perception, to keep the world blind to their true nature. But illusion is fragile. It requires constant maintenance, endless energy, a commitment to deception that never wavers. The moment pressure is applied, the moment scrutiny increases, the moment someone chooses not to engage, but to observe, the cracks spread, the performance falters, and eventually, the mask slips. Not because you attacked, but because the weight of their own lies became too much to carry. In relationships, this is the most lethal strategy. The manipulator thrives on your reaction, your anger, your pain, your desire to prove them wrong. It feeds them. It allows them to play the victim, to twist perception, to convince the world that your accusations are nothing more than delusions of a bitter fool. But silence destroys them. Silence forces them to carry the full weight of their deception alone. And deception is heavy. You do not need to expose the liar. The liar will expose themselves when left without a scapegoat, when there is no one left to manipulate, when the web of control they so carefully crafted begins to strangle them instead. The ones who fall for their tricks will start to notice the inconsistencies. The ones who once believed in them will begin to doubt. And the moment doubt enters the equation, the downfall has already begun. Because no illusion can survive scrutiny. No manipulator can function when the audience stops clapping. Revenge is often seen as an act of force, of aggression, of retaliation. But the most powerful form of revenge is patience. It is knowing that time is your greatest weapon. It is walking away, knowing that destruction is inevitable, that the foundation was always rotten, that the very thing used to deceive others will one day betray its creator. Because liars do not just lie to the world, they lie to themselves. And self-deception is a slow suicide. The greatest mistake you can make is believing you need to fight for the truth. The truth does not require your defense. It does not beg for recognition. It does not need to be shouted from the rooftops. Truth waits. It allows illusions to crumble. It allows deception to rot from the inside. And when the collapse finally happens, when the manipulator is forced to face the wreckage of their own making, when the same people they once controlled begin to turn against them, your silence will be louder than any war you could have waged. In relationships, this is especially dangerous. The manipulator needs conflict. Conflict keeps the illusion alive, keeps you engaged, keeps you emotionally invested in their game. Walking away is not just an escape, it is a death sentence for their control. Because once you refuse to fight, once you refuse to react, once you let them sit alone in the reality they have created, the realization sets in. They were never powerful. They were never in control. They only had as much power as you gave them. And now, they have nothing. Your absence is a mirror they cannot look away from. It forces them to see what they tried to hide. It forces the audience they manipulated to start questioning the performance. The moment you step away, the moment you allow them to bear the full weight of their deception, the moment you refuse to carry the narrative for them, the story falls apart. And once the truth begins to leak, it spreads like wildfire. The ones who once admired them become suspicious. The ones who once believed them begin to whisper. And there is no force in existence that can stop the unraveling once it begins. The mistake most make is believing they need to force justice, that without confrontation, the liar will escape unpunished. But punishment is already built into deception. Every manipulator, every narcissist, every fraud lives on borrowed time. Every day, the weight of their own performance gets heavier. Every moment, the lie demands more effort to maintain. And one day, it breaks them. Not by your hand, not by your words, but by the sheer force of truth, refusing to stay buried. So let it happen. Step back. Walk away. Say nothing. Let them drown in their own lies. Let them collapse under the weight of the deception they created. Truth is like a lion. It does not need you to fight for it, to shield it, to beg the world to recognize it. All it requires is freedom. Set it loose, and it will tear through deception like flesh. It will dismantle falsehoods with a force that no amount of lies can withstand. Those who build their power on illusion fear truth more than anything, not because it attacks, but because it reveals. A lion does not need to hunt what willingly cowers before it. It does not need to roar to prove its presence. Its existence alone is enough to command dominance. The mistake most make is believing truth must be defended. That unless it is shouted, unless it is fought for, unless it is constantly reinforced, it will be lost. But truth does not work that way. Truth does not beg to be believed. It does not require consensus. It does not falter under attack. It simply waits. It watches as deception exhausts itself, as manipulation tangles its own web, as lies pile up until their weight becomes unbearable. Then, at the perfect moment, when the falsehoods are too vast to sustain, truth strikes. And when it does, there is no escape. In relationships, this is where most falter. A liar will go to war for deception. A manipulator will spin endless narratives, dragging you into an endless battle of explanations, accusations, and rewritten realities. And the moment you engage, you have already lost. Not because you lack truth, but because you have made the mistake of believing truth needs to be proven. It does not. It simply needs to be unleashed. The moment you stop defending, stop justifying, stop participating in the circus of distortion, truth begins to hunt. Let the manipulator speak. Let the liar weave their web. Let them build their house of glass with confidence. Because that house is temporary. Every lie is a crack. Every false narrative is a weakness. And when the weight of truth finally crashes through, there will be nothing left standing. No foundation, no credibility, no escape. This is why the strongest do not waste breath on arguments. The moment truth is set free, it devours its opposition without mercy. People fear truth because it does not negotiate. It does not bend to comfort, to convenience, to personal bias. And those who rely on deception know this. They do not attack truth directly because they cannot defeat it. Instead, they try to distract, to delay, to exhaust those who carry it. That is why the world is filled with endless debates, circular conversations, manipulations disguised as intellectual discourse. The goal is not to win, but to delay the inevitable. Because once truth emerges fully, it does not simply expose, it destroys. Your greatest advantage in life is understanding that truth does not need your protection. It needs your restraint. The more you fight to defend it, the more you play into the hands of those who seek to distort it. The moment you stop engaging, the moment you let the liar exhaust their own performance, the moment you step back and let truth breathe, that is when the collapse begins. Because deception cannot exist without constant maintenance. Truth exists without effort. Look at any manipulative relationship, any controlling partner, any person who thrives on deception. Their power does not come from truth. It comes from controlling the perception of truth. It is a game of diversion, of emotional entanglement, of keeping you engaged in defending what should never need defending. And the moment you realize that truth will expose them without your help, the moment you step away and allow their own lies to ensnare them, you win. Not through force, not through debate, but by allowing time to do what it does best, reveal everything. This is why truth is feared, not because it is fragile, but because it is inevitable. It does not go away when ignored. It does not weaken when attacked. It does not break under pressure. It only waits. And when it finally arrives, when it steps onto the stage and looks the liar in the eyes, it does not flinch. It does not explain. It does not need permission to exist. It simply is. And that, alone, is enough to undo everything deception ever built. If you want to win against deception, let truth breathe. Do not rush to defend it. Do not panic when it is challenged. Do not lower yourself into the mud of manipulation, trying to convince those who have already decided to blind themselves. Stand back. Let the liar tangle themselves in their own contradictions. Let them burn their own credibility to the ground. Let time sharpen truth's claws until the moment is right. Then watch as it devours everything false with no effort at all. Truth is the most dangerous force in existence. It does not need an army. It does not need validation. It does not need you to fight on its behalf. It only needs one thing: to be set free. And when it is, when the cage is opened and it is allowed to run wild, it does not lose. It eradicates.